Fractions and mixed numbers on a number line. Alright, so we have this number line where we have placed the whole numbers onto that number line. So we have 0, 1, 2, and 3 on that number line. Now you might say, okay, well 1/2, it seems easy enough to place on the number line. I know that 1/2 is in between 0 and 1, and then so 1/2 would be halfway in between 0 and 1. And then so we would label that 1/2. Now, to look at that just a little bit further, it's the 2 that explains to us as to how many parts that we need to divide in between those whole numbers there. So there's divided into 2 parts, 1 and 2 parts. And then the reason that it's the 1 right there tells us how far away from that whole number that we have to go. It's one of those 2 parts. And then so we have to jump over that distance from 1. So that's why it is that there is 1/2, and that's how it is that we place 1/2 on that number line. Same type of problem, we'll look at it another way. If we were to draw a picture representation and draw a unit bar in between 0 and 1 for 1/3, we would know for this unit bar we would have to divide it into 3 parts, which is the denominator. So to divide it into 3 parts, we just draw 2 lines there, and we know that we would have to shade in one of those 3 parts. Now this is the exact same thing that occurs on the number line, in that we use the denominator to know that we just divide in between 0 and 1, we need to divide that into 3 parts, so we draw 2 lines, we've divided into 3 parts, 1, 2, and 3, and then the numerator tells us how far away from that whole number that we need to go. We only need to go 1 away from there, and that's why we go 1 away. And going 1 away, we end up at 1/3. And I'll finish labeling the rest of those. 1/3. And then this is 2 away from 0, which is 2/3. And 1 would also equal 3/3. So I placed 1/3 onto that number line right there. Here we're asked to place 1 2/3 onto the number line. Now, 1 2/3, I know that 1 2/3 is actually going to be 1 whole for sure, and then it's 2/3. So in between 1 and 2 there, that's where it is that I drew the other unit bar, and then I look at 2/3. To represent 2/3 with this unit bar, I divide it into 3 parts, and I would be looking at 2 of those parts. And then so I'll go ahead and shade in 2 of those parts, along with that 1 whole. That's 1 2/3. Bringing that back to my number line, the way that looks is as follows, where it is that I will be looking right here in between 1 and 2, and divide it into 3 parts by drawing those 2 lines. The other thing that I'm going to do for this here and the rest of the number line is to also divide those other parts into those 3 parts, and just to make it clearer as to what it is that I'm doing. Finally, I'm going to go ahead and label 1 2/3 here, and then also place my point. I placed 1 2/3 onto this number line. I suppose, since I did draw 2 and 3 here originally, I suppose I could divide the rest of that number line into those 3 parts in between each of those whole numbers. It says that it's thirds, and that's why we divided this number line and the rest of those parts into thirds. Alright, it's time for you to try. Go ahead and place 2 1/4 onto this number line. Copy it down and hit pause. Alright, 2 1/4. I know there's already 2 wholes, so I'm going to draw 2 unit bars. And then I would just be looking at 1/4. And I know that 1/4 then at this point is in between 2 and 3. I'll draw 1 more unit bar. The 4 tells us to divide that into 4 parts by drawing 3 lines. And then just shading in one of those parts, so that there is 1/4. Now bringing that back to our number line, two 1/4 would be right there. Now if I carried that through back to the other parts of that number line, it would look like this here, where each of those other, in between each of those other whole numbers, is also divided into 4 parts. That's what that's showing there. Now, the last thing that I would have to do is to go ahead and write 2 and 1/4 right there. This would have been right here 2 and 2/4, 2 and 3/4, and 3, or 2 and 4/4, which is also equal to 3. Here's another type of question that you might face. Here says identify the mixed number for point A. And looking at the number line, I see the whole numbers 0, 1, and 2, and it does look like point A is in between 2 and 3. So for the mixed number, I'll go ahead and write in 2 there. It's 2 and then a fraction. At that point, I zoom in and I really look really closely in between 2 and 3. I see that in between 2 and 3, that is divided into 2 parts in between 2 and 3. So that 2 is our denominator. And then this is 1 away from that whole number, and that's why 1 is there. And so that A is at 2 and 1/2. And then so it looks very similar to what it is that I was doing before. Here's the same type of question. It's asking you where point B is on the number line. Now this is a partial number line, where it is that you'll notice that this is now starting with a 3 here, a 4 here, and a 5 here for the whole numbers. And then so they're not showing you 2, 1, or 0, as we were seeing before. So the whole portion of the mixed number for point B is going to be 3. Our denominator in this case, that's how many parts this is divided into in between each of those whole numbers. So that's 1, 2, and 3 parts. And therefore we'll write a 3 for the denominator. Finally, away from the whole number, that's 1 and 2 away from the whole number, so we will write a 2 there. Labeling those pieces on the number line might give you a better idea about how it is that this number line is broken out. So that's 3 and 2/3. 3, 3 and 1/3, 3 and 2/3, 4. Alright, it's your turn. Go ahead and copy this bottom portion down where you're writing a mixed number for point A and point B. Write that mixed number for point A and for point B. Go ahead and hit pause. For point A, that's 2 wholes, and then the denominator is 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. That means the denominator for B is also going to be 5, so if you have that wrong already, you're going to have to go ahead and correct that. The mixed number for point A is 2 and 3/5. And then so this is 2 and 1/5 here. This is 2 and 2/5 here. And that's 2 and 3/5, 2 and 4/5, and 3. That means 3, and then B is at 3 and 1/5. And then I can stop labeling there. I'll just talk them out though. 3 and 2/5, 3 and 3/5, 3 and 4/5, 4. So again, the mixed number for point B written right here is 3 and 1/5, where we have that whole, and then we have that fractional part. A common mistake is to say, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so that would be a 4 in the denominator. No, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 parts. In between each of those whole numbers, it's divided into 5 parts. So that's how it is that we place those fractions and mixed numbers onto a number line.